Hey everyone, welcome back to this week's weekly recap. This is going to be a video for week 8. And today we're just going to be touching briefly on agent engineering. What is that? And then give some sort of practical examples for agent engineering. So, without further ado, let's jump right into it. So, what is agent engineering? So, agent engineering is the field of designing, building, and managing agents. And, agents really are anything that can do sensing, thinking, or acting. And I'll touch a little bit more on what those really mean, but think of like the sensing of like an environment being like an input, the acting on on an environment is like an output, and then the thinking and the reasoning is like the processing. So just hold on to that for right now. I guess some baseline examples I can probably give is for the sensing part. As well as sensing and acting portion. Um, you know, the newly released self-driving car Waymo. Obviously, if you've been around, in California, San Francisco, Los Angeles, all those different places, um, you would have probably at least once have seen a Waymo car driving around. I know I have a few times, right? Um, and what makes those self-driving cars function is that they take in a lot of inputs as well as outputs in order to work, right? So agent engineering is very prevalent within the self-driving car space. And then I guess an example for the thinking and reasoning portion would be like a chatbot, right? It reads an input that a user gives, it thinks about it, and then it will send a reply out. Okay, so let's really talk about what really makes up an AI agent. So, like I discussed before, there are these three different components that really make it up. And here are the actual terms that are used in the space, right? There's the perception, which is the input portion, like I was discussing. Then there is the reasoning part, which is the thinking, like how does it decide what to do, stuff like that, right? And then the action is, how it changes the environment, right? I guess to really give an example about how all these really work, um, let's think about the self-driving car that I was talking about, like Waymo, for instance, right? How does Waymo as an AI agent itself, how does it go through all these basic steps, right? So let's say we have an example of Waymo, right? Like you're in the car and the car wants to switch lanes, right? How would the AI agent think that? Think about that, right? Okay, before you need to switch lanes, what's the first thing you need to do, right? You need to check to see, is there a car next to me, right? Then you also to see, okay, is there a car coming up on me, right? You don't want to like start making a right turn and essentially cut somebody off, right? So that's another rule going on there, right? And after the um the AI agent is able to say, okay, there's nobody currently to the right of me, and there's nobody really coming up on me, right? I am able to safely make this lane swap, right? That would be the reasoning part, right? The whole thinking of, okay, like I'm clear to do this, I'm clear to do that, so therefore I can do this. That's what this part right here is. That's what all the reasoning is. And then the action, of course, is just simply making the swap into the next lane. That's kind of all it is, right? So it's really funny too because if you notice, these three steps that I was just describing, we as humans do on a daily basis. On almost anything that based on anything that we do, we are essentially going through these steps, right? We see something, right? We gather information about something. we think about it, and then we put our thoughts into action. That's literally all AI agents are doing, right? They're just sort of, trying to replicate the human thought process, right? So, and honestly, I find that to be quite interesting. And of course, there's all these different types of AI agents here, and I just jotted down a few examples here, different types. So the one of the first agent types is a simple reflex agent, right? And essentially, it acts on only a current input, right? And an example I could think of was a thermostat, for instance, right? That's turning the heat on and off, right? It requires a user input in order to function, right? And without that user input, it doesn't do much of anything else. Then you have the model based agent, right? It essentially remembers the world around it and then does its task based off of that. Example of this would be Roomba, right? If anyone's ever owned a Roomba or owned a product similar to Roomba, before they can do before the Roomba can do any sort of cleaning at all, it needs to scan the environment it's going to clean. That way it can scan it, learn about the environment, figure out where all the different obstacles are, so that way when you actually say, I want you to go clean this, it's able to efficiently do its job. Then you have the goal based agent, right? And this chooses actions based on desired outcomes, right? An example of this would be GPS, right? When you throw in a GPS, right, the main thing that it's concerned with is trying to get you to your destination in the quickest, most efficient time possible, right? And as many of us know, especially driving in LA, what could be the fastest option, like you know, at one point in time can always change at a given notice, right? So this is just an example of goal-based agents, right? It's just able to just, changes its actions, right, constantly. Then you have a utility-based agent, right? This chooses actions to maximize happiness and success, right? This you particularly see these kind of agents with stock trading bots, right? This is used almost all the time over on Wall Street, right? Almost every single company has these kind of utility-based agents, and it's proven to be very, very lucrative for them. Then last but certainly not least, you have the learning agent, right? It's the main purpose of this kind of learning agent is, as you can probably guess, is to improve its performance over time, right? Constantly learning from different things. Um, a quick example I can think of that everyone would understand is that if you guys have played um, chess, online chess, um, though if you continuously play against the same bot over and over and over again, there is, the bot will essentially get better, right? So if you have a particular kind of trick that you always like to use, it can only work for so many times before that AI realizes, okay, you're going to do this, and then plan accordingly to that. Okay, so why are AI agents important now, right? Where is the real world application for these things, right? Well, some of the real world applications for agents include like web searching, right? Automation, personal assistance, customer support. The list can go on and on and on, right? Whether you guys are aware of it or not, AI agents are a part of your everyday lives, right? You know, I'm pretty sure every single one of us has a smartphone, right? It's just hard to find anybody who does not have a smartphone. But depending on whether you have Apple or Google or Android or whatever, your phone comes with a personal assistant, right? Whether it's Siri, it's Google or Alexa, whatever, right? You have a personal assistant on your phone. And that is a example of an AI agent, right? If you ask it to do something, right, such as looking up a recipe, or telling you the time, or you want to know more information about, any sort of random fact, right? Your AI agent, your personal assistant will be able to tell you that, right? And it's proven to be very successful, right? Almost about 30 or 45% of people who have smartphones actively use their personal assistants for common things, right? Which, it may not seem like a lot, but that is a large number of people who are relying on personal assistants to do mundane and basic tasks. And that's not to say that it's bad that they're doing that. It just goes to show of how much we are how much we are relying on these tools, even for the most mundane of tasks. So now I want to do a little bit of a real world example, right? Using ChatGPT. ChatGPT is classified as a research assistant, right? Basically, which essentially means that it, as you can probably guess, it helps you gather information about a specific topic, right? That's essentially what a research agent uh, is, right? So I'm gonna switch over to ChatGPT in a bit here, but I can at least give you a breakdown of what we are going to be expecting here. So I'm gonna type out, I'm preparing a report on electric vehicle adoption. Please find the most recent statistics, summarize trends, and draft a one-page executive summary, right? And through this little example, hopefully it will be able to understand our request, break down the subtasks that we have to do, you know, while also browsing the web and extracting any sort of data that can be useful to our project, and then give us an output of a general summary. So I'm gonna swap us over to ChatGPT in just one moment here.